and welcome to this Divine Partnership Coaching video. I was actually thinking I'm going to do this video about some things that I highly recommend you do not do. Especially because, one, they will create further bad karma, mostly for you, but depending on your spiritual path and your soul tribe's path and stuff, it could create chaos and trauma for others as well. Now, just to preface this, I am a very eclectic spiritualist. I've studied, I don't want to say all religious paths or all spiritual paths, but like most of them. Paganism, various forms of Wicca, shamanism, a lot of non-Abrahamic spiritual paths, Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism, what's it called, Discordianism. That one was a fun one to explore. Christianity, Judaism, Muslimism. I'm not sure if that's the proper ism on there. So a lot of the mainstream Abrahamic religions, some smaller, more obscure ones, Druidism, Celtic shamanism, and various New Age and ancient spiritual paths. And I very much believe in the ability for us to affect each other energetically, while at the same time I do very much resonate with what Abraham Hicks talks about, and there being no assertion. And what that fits in with a lot of religious texts that effectively say, you can't force anybody else. You can't change their free will. You can't make anybody do anything. And, well, really, I mean, to try to do that just creates, it basically just rebounds on you. Like, even if you're able to affect someone, like, let's say, like love spells, which are a very big no-no in most spiritual paths, and those that even create love spells are already bringing themselves a whole boatload of yucky karma. And here's the thing. I kind of like the movie The Craft, because it's a very good example of, even if you could have an assertion on somebody and do a spell that would cause them to be in love with you, it would not be a genuine love. And it would go very, very wrong in so many ways. And not only would you end up ruining that between you and them, but you could very much hurt them in a lot of ways. And so one of my first cautions to anybody getting on the divine path is don't even think about going into spell work that could affect others. And along that same line, recognize that, and there's a lot of indigenous paths that talk about shooting energy at people when you point at them, and not just like a physical pointing, but when you point at them with your mind. And even mundane sciences have pointed out that we definitely have electromagnetic fields inside and outside of our body, and when we think about other people, they are affected. When we are near other people, they are affected. They've even proven that when, through studying the God particle, that when we observe something, it changes. We change it. And so every thought that you have towards another person or thing, or towards yourself, affects that thing. And so whether you're thinking about yourself, or you're thinking about a karmic, either your karmic, or if your partner is in a third party with a karmic, or you're thinking about your divine partner or family members, things like that, get out of the habit of thinking negatively about them, because that is in and of itself a form of black magic. And so is any sort of manipulations, mind games, things like that, like trying to elicit certain responses from people. Like those are forms of black magic, and they're attempts to manifest control, and they always backfire. And then you get hit with, I go with the threefold law. It comes from Wicca, but every spiritual path has its own form of karmic laws. You want to go with Christianity, it's do unto others. There are many forms of it, but effectively what you think about another person, what you send out to another person, what you do to another person comes back to you times 3. In some paths it's times 10, in others it's times 100. That effectively is the more, like, karma isn't just that, but that is the more direct and instantaneous manifestation of karma. If I go and, like, let's take a simple one. I know that there have been some mice wandering around near my workspace. Now, if I go and poison them, because why? Like, they're not in my space. They're not pooping in my space. They're actually outside of it. I work in an old RV, and they're outside of it. They're just doing their thing. The only thing that they're really even doing that comes into my vibration is that I can hear them, but they're not hurting anything. Now, if I go and poison them just for my comfort, so basically I don't have to hear them, it is very likely that somebody else is going to do something inadvertent to poison me, and more likely with anger or sadness or self-defeating energy, because poison isn't just poison, but it's that thoughtlessness, that selfishness about, well, you're bothering me in my space. I did that. If I did that to the mice, that happened to me. It works the same way as, like, if you're thinking about your karmic and you're thinking, well, it's all their fault. They inserted themselves. They did this thing. They did that thing. They're causing trouble. They won't let go. They're not going on their healing path, or they're hurting my divine partner, or I'm jealous of them, or they're getting what I want. All these low vibrational thoughts, they actually end up coming back to you. They end up rebounding, especially if you get into a place of, like, being doing things like, well, I'm going to beat them up, or I'm going to do something to cause chaos in their life, or I'm going to tell them off, or I'm going to make my partner tell them off, or I'm going to tell them something hurtful about them. Like, that is a form of shooting energy at somebody. Even just the thought of it is shooting energy at them. And even though there isn't assertion, as in, like, I mean, you can't, well, I don't know, some people, you can embrace the absurd and assume that you could think things and it would happen to other people. But what my feelings are is that you're only going to think thoughts like that when you're in low vibration, and you're only going to affect others who are also in a low vibration, who are in a victim villain mindset where they are affected by those things. And it's because they're leaving themselves open to being affected by those things. And so if both of you are in that state, guess what? You're both being karmic. You're both working that black magic, in that sense of shooting energy at each other, and creating more chaos for the both of you. It's very self-defeating. It's not kind. It's not authentic either, because if you were in their shoes, you would likely feel like that was incredibly unfair. And, well, I was going to say, if you're in their shoes, you would also be feeling like you also probably would not be being authentic. So many other videos that I need to do. In any case, stay away from stuff like that, whether it's an intentional spell, whether it's just spells from the words that you use or the way that you talk about people. And that includes the way that you talk about your divine partner. And really think about it. If the words that come out of your mouth about your divine partner are, well, they're just messing up and they're just not doing this right and they're not treating me right, or they're just immature, or they're never going to learn. If you're talking things like that, one, you really need to consider, is this actually your divine partner? And if you really feel like they are, then you need to stop talking about them like that, because you are holding them in that place of being in victim villain mindset. And even though it's their job to get out of that place, you sending out that energy does not help them get there. It creates a density around them that does not help them. The other thing I want to caution is, it's kind of along the same lines. This is why I talked about the energy of it. But judgment. Judgment. And it's very important to recognize that we've all been karmics, and we are all on a path to healing and becoming divine femme, divine masculine in one form or another. And to judge another person is to judge yourself. Stay away from doing that. I mean, you're human, you're going to be working through feelings like that. But no matter what the situation is, no matter what the circumstances are, when you judge another, you bring judgment on yourself. So avoid doing that. The other thing to avoid is avoiding confrontation. And what I mean is, like, don't be diving into conflict, but look at situations where you need to stand up for yourself, as opportunities to affirm your self-worth, and give yourself a little pep talk and say, you know what, I am worthy of having this boundary. I am worthy of having a fence that is just the right height, so that not just anybody can walk over it and anytime they want. Because I take care of my grass, and I maintain my yard, and I do my self-care, and I am worthy of that. But, you know, on this path, both femmes and masculines, we tend to usually be dealing and healing from codependencies and toxic independence. And because of that, we're usually people pleasers, and we think, oh, you know what? I'll just get into happy-go-lucky vibes, and I won't. I'll be the chosen one because I'm not creating any conflict, and that, for one, is not actually true. What both healed men and women look for is somebody who is able to have a balance of, yes, it's nice to have a person who is generally in a grateful, joyful, and fun space. But part of being authentic is owning that you have other feelings, you have other needs, and is really being able to show that you can approach conflict in a kind, authentic way that does not demean other people. And that conflict resolution with you is something that just becomes contrast observation. How can we use this contrast? What can be fun about this? But don't avoid confrontation. Use it as opportunities to affirm your self-worth instead. And avoid anything that, I'm going to say, avoid anything that becomes like a tool of escaping your feelings. For some, that can be alcohol, some that can be drugs, others that can be relationships. These are very codependent addiction cycles to get into. And the best way I can think to describe it is that we as humans, because of our emotional nature, we have phoenix moments, and we're supposed to have them. They're moments when emotions will well up within us, and we have a choice to either compartmentalize them and focus on other things where they don't get dealt with until the compartment that we put them in is so full that it explodes. And that's one form of phoenix moment. It's more like a volcano moment where you go and it just makes a big mess. You don't even really deal with any of it. It's more like a tower moment. You just shook everything up. But in a healthy phoenix moment is you recognize these feelings are coming up. You realize that you're having memories of good times in the past, and also thinking in this moment now that those moments aren't there. And even though you might be in a space of knowing that more are coming to you, you still have that grieving process to go through of allowing the old stuff to dissipate, and you need that to happen. I call it a phoenix moment because you are being reborn. And when you sit with those emotions, whether they're anger or tears or whatever, and that you allow them to come upon you and wash over you, you might feel, at least the first half dozen times, like you're going to combust, like you're thinking about emotions that take you to scary places, fearful places, hurtful places, happy places that you're worried won't come back, things like that. But when you sit through them and you allow that fire to consume you and you are reduced to the ashes, you are reborn from that. And you are reborn as your inner being, and without the shell, without the armor, without things like that. But when you are reborn, you don't need those things so much. And then, and then you grow into a big bird and you develop your feathers and plumages and stuff. And then you'll basically keep going through that until, at least if you're following spirit's advice and advice from folks like me, you will begin to get to a point to where you don't need the armor at all. You're just enjoying your feathers and being with your inner being, and you know that you can change your mind at any time. You can be curious about who you are. You can feel your emotions and know that you're not going to die or melt if they're really big or heavy. That's an important process. And the more that we look for things to distract us from that, whether it's work or substances or sex or people or things of that nature, we don't even, it's funny because it doesn't make any of them go away. It just delays them. It's like, I often tell my kids when it comes to doing chores and cleaning their room, you do a little bit of it every day, it's not so overwhelming. You just do a little bit every day, and then you get used to that, and that becomes a comfortable thing, and then you feel happy about yourself. You did a little bit every day. But the other option is you can allow the mess to build and build and build and build, and then you got me and your grandparents and everybody else saying, hey, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this, until the moment comes when I come in and say, okay, now I'm going to be in here with you, saying, pick that up, pick that up, pick that up, pick that up, take that laundry down, do this thing, do this thing, do that thing. And that's overwhelming because there is a lot of stuff at that point in time. And usually my boys, being young and intelligent, go, I think I'd rather go for the first option. I'd rather just clean up a little bit every day and do it my own way and not wait for people to pressure me. And that's the sort of way that you want to look at those phoenix moments and processing your emotions and your healing path. Do a little bit every day. You can increase it as you want. Let's say it will increase naturally on its own. All you have to do, start small if you need to. Give yourself 60 seconds to start, then 5 minutes, then 10 minutes, then 15, then 20, then 30. Start with listening to a positive video, listening to some sort of comedy, watching an uplifting movie, then get into like meditation, and then maybe listening to Abraham Hicks or Eckhart Tolle, and then get into like coaching videos and things like that, and then get into writing lists of affirmations, whatever it is. Don't overload yourself with all the healing work to do. Just allow there to be space for it to happen, and recognize that if you do a little bit every day, you don't get the huge overwhelming moments, the tower volcano moments. You do have phoenix moments at first, but then they become more comfortable. You are tempered by your own fire, for a fun way to say it. Now, I'm sure it will come to me later as to more things that are good to avoid, but for right now, keep those in mind. Don't get into any sort of either actual spell work or accidental spell work, where you're, sending negative energy to other people, either in thought, word, or action. And avoid judgment. Remember, to judge another is to judge yourself. And avoiding your healing. If you can do those things, your path will go a lot smoother and a lot faster. And it'll be more fun. That's the most important thing, more fun.